I recently asked a bunch of artists, would you hire and who would you hire if you could? And the answers blew my mind away completely. 13% said yes, I would hire someone that could edit my videos for social media. 66% said yes, someone that can market my art. 4% said yes, someone that can turn my ideas into artworks. 9% said yes, an accountant. And 9% said no, why would I hire someone for the thing I love? And the reason this poll blew my mind away completely is because only a very small percentage of people gave the right answer. The majority gave the wrong answer. Let me explain what I mean with a story of how I started. 8 years ago, I started promoting my first series of artworks, and I quickly stumbled upon not being good enough, being insecure, and not having the experience necessary to promote my art. And as a result, my art didn't really get promoted at all. If I look at those early social media posts, they got 2-3 likes. If I look at those early exhibitions, nobody came to the opening. And if I look at me trying to sell art in those early days, well, nobody bought my work. And one of the things about these early years is that I was very ambitious. And if you are very ambitious and you are failing, then you will start to compensate for that failure. And one of the coping mechanisms for me was daydreaming about not failing, about a better future, about becoming a massive contemporary artist. And in those daydreams, I would indeed outsource all sorts of things. In those daydreams, I had artists executing my ideas, social media teams following me around, creating content about my day-to-day, and several galleries and salespeople selling my art, because that's how real art businesses should look. With which I mean that was how the failure version of me thought a real art business should look. And one of the reasons I thought that is because it's what all the business gurus were telling me. The Gary V's, the Value Damons, the Tom Billions, all of them share the same philosophy. Outsource everything you can potentially outsource as quickly as possible in order to scale as fast as possible. And in those types of businesses that they are building, this makes a lot of sense because there are a lot of unimportant tasks or tasks that you could perfectly script out and therefore potentially outsource so that you can free up time and work on more important things. And as a result, your business will probably scale faster. The problem, however, with this advice and mindset is that it doesn't work in the artistic industries because creativity cannot be outsourced and cannot be put in a recipe. Creativity is highly individual. You cannot simply copy-paste the style of an artist. You cannot simply copy-paste the way they write and communicate and paint and edit and all of that stuff. And so a large portion of the artistic business is something that you cannot outsource. And so striving for outsourcing what you are doing as an artist is something that is less achievable than most artists think. Another problem with outsourcing things is that making things that are outsourceable means that you have to make things that are replaceable, or at least make things that can be made by people that are replaceable. But being replaceable is the opposite of being an artist. And if things in your art business are being done by people who are replaceable, your business becomes less artistic over time. And on top of that, employees make things less personal because employees want to please their bosses. And the best way to please their bosses is to not piss them off. And the best way to not piss them off is to play it safe. And playing it safe is the opposite of being different. And being different is what artists are all about. In other words, for businesses, playing it safe is a smart conservative strategy. But for artists, playing it safe is the riskiest strategy of them all. Now you might be thinking by yourself, yes, but Dries, what about Damien Hirst and Jeff Koons? They have a whole factory of artists and are not making anything themselves anymore. Isn't that the proof that creativity can indeed be outsourced, that the creative business can be passive, and that what you are saying is complete and utter bullshit? Well, if that is what you are thinking, then you are of course completely right, except for the fact that you are completely wrong, because number one, these are only a very small percentage of artists that are doing that, and so they don't represent the working artist really. And number two, painting dots on a canvas simply doesn't require any type of creativity anymore and can therefore perfectly be outsourced. But can you sell those artworks as a nobody? No, you cannot. In order to sell these types of non-creative artworks, you need to have had a fruitful period of creative works prior to that, a set of fruitful established creative connections prior to that, and some kind of fruitful tax evasion service setup prior to that. And so, can you build a career that allows you to outsource almost all aspects of your career? Yes, probably, but that's something that 99% of us will never achieve. And so striving for that might just not be the realistic business plan that you need at this moment. And then you might ask yourself, what should you strive for then? What is a realistic business plan? Well, I've noticed that the most successful artists are striving for the exact opposite of what these business gurus are talking about. They are striving for the opposite of passiveness, the opposite of outsourcing, the opposite of impersonal. They are striving for more of their time involved in the artistic practice, making things more personal and more unique, because the more time involved and the more unique they make their art, the more personal brand they will build, and personal brand is their currency. In other words, the more unique and personal and distinguished they are able to make their work, the more they seem to be selling and the more famous they seem to be becoming. In 1965, Bob Dylan played at the Newport Folk Festival. He played on the electric guitar, which was considered the masturbation of the acoustic guitar in the folk world, and as a result, particular sections of the crowd literally booed him from the stage. And the next 2 years, critics would constantly be very harsh about his choice to go for the electric guitar. Over time, however, his electric period has been perceived by both critics and fans as his most revolutionary period. And now, 55 years later, we recognize his show at the Newport Folk Festival as a Copernican shift in the development of folk work. And so, looking back, the decision to go electric was a pretty good decision. And the only question I ask myself as an artist is, can you outsource that decision? And the answer is, of course, no. You have to make that decision yourself. But how can you make a revolutionary decision like that yourself? Well, the short answer is by dedicating yourself to your craft, by making something that people cannot but talk about, and by developing an art style that is so unique that it becomes so utterly remarkable that people cannot but notice it. And the natural consequence of becoming remarkable is that a large portion of people will dislike a large portion of you, as we've seen with Bob Dylan. Nobody ever changed the world without pissing some people off. And so how can you develop an art style that is so utterly remarkable, like Bob Dylan, for example? How can you develop an art style that grabs early adopters into your world, an art style that convinces galleries to support your art and collectors to buy your art? Well, answering those questions would be another 15 minutes and frankly, a completely different video. And so I'm very sorry, but we are not going to do that. Predominantly because I already made that other video. It's called 7 tips for making a good art style even better, but I will likely change the title in the future, so I'll link the video in the description and the end screens. That said, get the hell out of here.